What happened to April?
It seems the scepter has magic powers and somehow transported them both through time.
Hold on, dudes. If April's back in feudal Japan, does that mean we, like, have to ride that scepter back through time to get her?
You have no choice.
Who are the priests? Where's the temple?
Talk about your quantum leap!
Walker. Look. Tell me, were there demons today, not men? Real demons?
I don't know.
Old priests say, once before, demons defeated my ancestors. Now they've come back for me.
My cannons can destroy these monsters, but
In March 1993, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 arrived in theatres, during a time when the Turtles' popularity was beginning to lose its steam. Produced on a budget of over $20 million, it did shoot the #1 spot in the United States, but due to bad word of mouth, it dropped off the charts very quickly and only made $42 million domestically. The numbers for its worldwide profits are uncertain, but they abandoned the idea of doing a follow-up film down to the mediocre box office results, so its popularity outside the USA was probably very limited. It arrived at a time when many kids had moved on from Ninja Turtles. During the early 90s in the UK, Thunderbirds had came back, and kids were going crazy to get hold of all the toys, especially me. WWF was a big deal on Sky TV, and 1993 was the year Jurassic Park made its impact. Dinosaurs were in, and unfortunately, the Turtles were on their way out. The film was written and directed by Stuart Wilson, who had a career in TV shows and had only directed one movie, called Paradise, in 1982. He has obviously done more throughout his career with such films as Disney's Rocketman, but in terms of quality of his output of work, most of it is very mediocre. It's baffling to me, and probably many fans of the series, what encouraged the producers of the Turtles to hire this guy to write and direct the third movie. Stuart had no prior experience with action and dealing with animatronics, which is the main component of the series, but also had not shown that he was a strong visualist, like the director of the 1990 Turtles film, Steve Barron. The second film did have a TV director attached, but he has proven to be far more successful in that area. The movie certainly had a larger budget than the first film, but slightly lower than Turtles 2. The Jim Henson Company did not return to provide the animatronics for the Ninja Turtles like the previous two films, and this time round they were handled by the All Effects Company, headed by Eric Allard. His effects company has produced some fantastic special effects over the years, working on films such as Short Circuit, Demolition Man, Alien Resurrection, Matrix Reloaded, and Mission Impossible 3. I'm guessing the Jim Henson Company were charging too much at the time, and the All Effects Company bid at a lower price and got the job. There is footage of the effects team doing demonstration of the headsets for the actors and the software that communicated with the puppeteers. The performance process looks pretty much identical to the Henson Group system, but the movement of the mouths look far more mechanical and move a lot quicker, thus making the Turtles look less organic than the first two films. Splinter only seems to be built from the top half up and appears to have less movement than the Turtles. I think to most viewers there is a huge drop in quality in comparison to the Jim Henson work. I think it's really down to the experience the All Effects Company had. The people involved with the Jim Henson Company have years of experience of puppeteering and have the best people in the business involved in that area. So for a new company to come on board and take on the challenge of replicating the previous efforts, it's always going to be tough, and unfortunately it didn't work. It may be down to Eric Allard and his team not having enough time between takes to get everything right. It's uncertain at this point if that was the case. Paige Torko returns as April O'Neil, and again shares no personality traits to the original character. There's no reporting or investigating done by her, she's just a damsel in distress. She has some attitude to her which is kind of like April, I suppose, but that's the only similarity you're going to find with this interpretation of April. Elias Koteas returns as Casey Jones, a fan favourite, and is totally wasted in this film. His character is left to look after the guards and Kenshin, who are sent back in time. He should have really gone back with the Turtles, but instead they have Elias playing a character called Wit, who looks like Casey but is from the past, implying he could be a distant relative, but this is never made clear. The character Wit is a down-on-his-luck soldier who tries to become friends with April, but is also working as a spy for Walker. British actor Stuart Wilson plays Walker, the arms trader. He has turned up in many films such as Lethal Weapon 3, No Escape, Enemy of the State and Hot Fuzz. I think Stuart is easily the best part of the film, and is a natural when it comes to any comedic moments. I think you can tell he knows he's in a silly film. Is it me, or does he look and act like Rick Mail in this?
Ignorant, superstitious fools.
We was just wondering.
Them, you moronic toad.
The movie opens in feudal Japan, 1603. A man is being chased by 4 samurai into the woods. A mysterious woman is hiding in between the trees, later revealed to be Mitsu. She is keeping a close eye on what's going on. However, the samurai eventually capture and take the man away, who is revealed to be the prince, named Kenshin. It jump cuts to the present. April O'Neil has been shopping in preparation for her upcoming vacation. She brings the turtles some gifts before she goes on holiday. Michelangelo is given an old lamp, Donatello is given an old radio to fix, Leonardo is given a book on swords, and Raphael is to receive a fedora, but after getting in a strop and walking off, he's never formally given it. For Splinter, she brings him an ancient Japanese scepter. Back in the past, Kenshin is being spoken down to by his father, Lord Norinaga, for disgracing their family name and disagreeing with his father's wishes for war. You may recognise the actor, he has been in many films, especially Waterworld, but also provides lots of voiceover work. Walker, an English trader who has come to supply the Japanese army with added manpower and firearms, interrupts their argument. Kenshin leaves his father's presence and finds the same scepter, and reads the inscription, "Open wide the gates of time." In the present, April is looking at the scepter and it begins to light up. She is then sent back in time while Kenshin takes her place. Each wears what the other did, but for some reason April still has her Walkman, already a flaw in the film's time travel theories. Upon arrival, April is accused of being a witch, but Walker finds it laughable and claims she has no power and she is put in prison. Back in the present, Kenshin is distressed upon seeing the turtles and calls them Kappa. After learning from Kenshin of the situation, the turtles decide to go back in time to get April. However, according to Donatello's calculations, they have to do it within 60 hours, otherwise the scepter's power will disappear, due to the time-space continuum being out of sync. They bring in Casey Jones to watch over the lair and use the scepter to warp through time. When doing so, the turtles are replaced by 4 of the honor guards, who are confused at their new surroundings. Back in time, the turtles awake on horseback. During the confusion, Mikey, who is carrying the scepter, ends up riding off alone into the forest and gets ambushed by an unknown assailant. The others go to search for April at the palace, where they are identified as honor guards, which allows them time to hunt down April. The turtles find April and also free another prisoner named Wit, locked up for trying to start a mutiny against Walker, but the turtles' quick escape ends up leaving them all in the wilderness and without a clue where to go. The group are again attacked, this time by villagers mistaking them for the Lord's forces. The attack stops when Mitsu unmasks Raphael and sees that he looks just like one of her prisoners. The turtles realise that she is talking about Mikey and accompany her to the village. However, they stumble upon the village being burnt down by Walker's men. As the turtles attempt to help the villagers, Mikey is let out by a pair of Walker's dopey soldiers and joins in the fight. Walker retreats, but the fire continues to burn, trapping a young boy named Yoshi inside a house. Michelangelo saves him and Leonardo performs CPR, but the villagers think he is casting an evil spell on Yoshi. John Duprez returns once again to score the final entry in the live-action series. John has provided some great music for these films, but 95% of his work has not been released. For each soundtrack, you only get 1 or 2 tracks from his score, and the rest is just pop music. Turtles 3 has probably the weakest soundtrack release I've ever come across. It doesn't use any music that is contemporary for the time, and only really features music that was previously released, making nothing unique at all for the album. It features Tarzan Boy, that was released in 1985, Can't Stop Rockin' by ZZ Top, which came out in 85 as well. It recycles Turtle Power, which isn't even featured in the film. They also fill up the soundtrack with a remix of Tarzan Boy in a desperate attempt to fill up the album. Avoid this crappy release. There were no tie-in video games released for the film. but I thought I'll give myself the opportunity to discuss Turtles 3, The Manhattan Project, and Turtles in Time. The Manhattan Project arrived in 1992 and was only released in Japan and the USA on the NES. I have no idea why it didn't make it to Europe considering the popularity of the Ninja Turtles. The game was met with rave reviews from critics and fans. It borrows the style and structure of the Turtles in Time arcade game, which was released the year before, and features the villains from the Turtles 2 film. In September of 1991, Konami released the arcade game Turtles in Time, which was their second attempt at a Turtles game. It brought over the 4-player option from their previous release, and the Turtles travel through time, hunting down and fighting many villains from the cartoon as well as Tokka and Razor from the second movie. When it came to be ported to the consoles, the Super Nintendo version was retitled Turtles 4 because of the previous 3 entries on the NES. They introduced some new end-of-level bosses and moved around the Tokka and Razor characters, replacing them with Bebop and Rocksteady, and put them earlier in the game. Shredder at the end was replaced with the Super Shredder version from Turtles 2. The Mega Drive version was renamed Hyperstone Heist. It was pretty much identical to the arcade and SNES versions, with just a few cosmetic changes. In 1997, a live-action TV show called Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation aired on the Fox Kids network and ran for 26 episodes. The series followed the continuity of the live-action films. However, the series and the films displayed different styles. The Turtles live in the same abandoned train station featured in the second and third films. Shredder is alive and no longer Super Shredder, and April O'Neil and Casey Jones are absent. When they were developing the 4th movie, which never came to light, they were aiming to introduce a 5th turtle called Kirby, named after comic book artist Jack Kirby. However, the producers of the show felt they should introduce a female turtle, which the creators reluctantly agreed to. Therefore, the show introduced a female Ninja Turtle called Venus de Milo. The show came out when I was about 15 to 16. I saw a few episodes and thought it was a bit naff, to be honest, and it felt like I was watching a strange spin-off of Power Rangers. It was obviously produced by the same people who handled Power Rangers, the TV show. By 2004, the Turtles had came back in popularity, obviously not as popular as they were in the late 80s and early 90s, but a new series was on TV, and surprisingly a new movie came out in 2007, following on from Turtles 3. Instead of live action, it was all done in computer animation. The film didn't fare well with critics, but seemed to get more positive feedback from its audience. I personally thought it was very good. It was really well animated and its action sequences were nicely choreographed and designed. I didn't really have many issues with it. It was a good solid flick, nothing special, but plenty of stuff in it to keep you entertained for 90 minutes. Now this year sees the release of the new live action Turtles film, with our heroes being replaced by CG counterparts, instead of martial artists in rubber suits. The fans were certainly displeased with the overall look of the Turtles, with them having nostrils, lips and large head bandanas. With Michael Bay attached, fans were already frustrated and were predicting how this film would turn out, and with Megan Fox as April O'Neil, things were not looking good. The film is now out in the USA, and people in the UK will have to wait till October to see it, a 2-month gap, and so far the reviews have been very mixed. So I don't foresee many people running out to see it come October. I'm sure the biggest beef fans had with this film was that the animatronics weren't as good as the previous entries, and the time travel story premise was totally uncalled for. Splinter looks like bad taxidermy, and barely resembles his previous design. The Turtles are a mixed bag. Leonardo to me never looked right, and they kept showing his teeth. It's freaky, stop it! The other Turtles are okay, but once they start talking, the illusion is all gone. It's totally bizarre they thought the idea of the Turtles travelling back in time would be the ideal direction for the 3rd movie. There were loads of interesting villains in the comics and the popular cartoon show to choose from, such as the Rat King, Baxter Stockman and Kerrang! Of course, going with Kerrang and Dimension X would be a very expensive option to go with, but sending the Turtles back to feudal Japan was totally unexpected and not what the fans wanted. I saw this film on a pirated VHS tape a month or two before it came out in the UK. My friend had bought it back from when he was on holiday in Spain, and I had no idea a 3rd movie had come out. I was of course excited to see it, but after viewing it, even as a kid, I was disappointed. The first moments you see the Turtles jump on screen and start dancing around to ZZ Top, your mind is like, what the fuck am I watching? In the other Turtle films they always jump into action to save someone with a great soundtrack to accompany them, but with this you are just left confused and shocked at its execution. The Turtles in the film spend a lot of time providing cheap pop cultural references, dated ones I might add, or cheesy one-liners that all fall flat. The Turtles always provided childish jokes to a certain extent, because it is aimed at kids, but Stuart Gillard fails to provide any decent jokes even for the adults who are dragged along to the theatres to see it with their children. Okay, there are 1 or 2 scenes I always found funny, The guard's trying to adjust to life in the future, and when Mikey burns a pizza, so he uses it as a frisbee.
Pizza. Got that, dude? Pizza. Frisbee. Also cool. Who frisbeed me in the face? I'm out of here.
The film has been discussed a lot by fans online, and they have all expressed their frustration with it and extreme hatred for it. But I have to admit, I did enjoy some aspects of it. To me, the villain Walker is the highlight. He is a great actor and gives some credibility to the film despite him being the villain fans didn't want. Us Brits are always good at being the villains, and Elias Koteas does the best with what he is given. He and Stuart make the movie just bearable to watch. Raphael has the only decent story arc out of the Turtles, with him trying to console Yoshi with his anger issues. Raphael can obviously relate, and passes on some helpful advice. It's good to see they went with a more serious approach in this film, unlike the second movie, which really tried to push the comedy and cartoon elements more. However, Turtles 2 was a far more successful movie, and it was more enjoyable, plus it was the movie the studio really wanted. They were very happy with the results, but at least number 3 tried to take things in a different direction, even though it ultimately failed. The photography and set design for the period scenes is pretty good. It totally fooled me because I thought they shot it somewhere in Asia, but it was all done in Oregon, USA. You gotta give them credit for that. The only downside is the lighting is very flat looking in the present, and with no soft filtering and hardly any scenes shot with a strong contrast or low lighting like the first movie. So the Turtles' outfits clearly look like rubber suits, which further takes away from the illusion that these are turtles and not just guys in suits. The Turtles use their weapons more, especially Leonardo. Turtles 2 pissed me off as a kid because I always avoided using them, so what's the point in having them then? But unfortunately the fight scenes seem slow and uninspired to watch. It's very standard stuff. The whole time travel idea is flawed really from the get-go, and so poorly implemented into the story. They break their own time travel law straight away. April takes a Walkman back with her. The guards who travel to the future are all wearing their underwear apart from one who swaps with Michelangelo and takes his shorts. So he must have been in his samurai gear with no underwear. It's all done in the purpose of a lame joke. The movie ends poorly with the Turtles. The first movie has them shouting Cowabunga after Splinter defeats Shredder. Number 2 has them doing backflips, and this one just ends with one of the worst jokes ever. It's a sad and embarrassing end to the series. As we all know, Turtles 3 is not a good movie. It killed the live action series, and the Turtles franchise was already on its way out at the time, so it was a film that wasn't really needed and seemed very much like a quick cash grab to capitalise on any remaining fans. It's a shame the films got worse with each sequel. Like most movie franchises, they always tend to dip in quality. The first movie completely nailed it and got everything right. It's strange they didn't stick with that style for the follow-ups. The Studio New Line Cinema were desperate to make the sequels appeal more towards kids, which is really silly because the first movie did so well at the box office due to its approach and direction. There was no need for a change in tone. There are nuggets of enjoyable scenes in Turtles 3, but those moments don't come from the Turtles. The villains are far more interesting to watch, even though they are considered very much like stock characters and aren't from the Turtles universe. To me, this film has similar traits to Robocop 3. They both try to be serious, and the villains end up being more interesting than the lead characters, and both exhibit that rushed, cheap production. But what else can I add? It's a highly forgettable film that should have never really been made.
Good. Tomorrow, Walker, we will use your guns.
My pleasure.
Walker. My dungeon's very crowded.
Well, then it would only be humane not to take any more prisoners then, wouldn't it? Just have to kill everybody.
The daimyo is coming in the morning. With Walker and guns.
Great. God, man.
Equal partners. What? I'm not your spy anymore.
I've come back.
Yeah, we like to drop in about every 3 or 4 centuries.
Yeah, and it looks like you're having a rough day, so, give us the scepter back and, get out of here.
Yeah, huh?
Disgraced my ancestor, but you will not disgrace me. But I'm willing to die. Kill him.
Chico. We will both die.
Your turn! Hello! Goodbye! I get such a kick out of this job! Hey, alright! I love this stuff!
Don't forget, you can still purchase the poster celebrating 100 retrospectives. You can find a link to the poster in the description box below or via my website. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can find more retrospective reviews by clicking on these videos.